HSUS comes to Nebraska, we've got reaction. And the Nebraska cattlemen want to put more beef on your plate, but we're not talking about your dinner plate. And waterbeds for cows? We'll explain. But we start with headlines. To many in agriculture, they're viewed as public enemy number one. HSUS, the Humane Society of the United States. Some see them as a big threat to Nebraska agriculture, including Governor Dave Heineman, who has said he wants to kick their butts. Now they come to the state saying they want to help farmers. Here's more.
I think the industrial model that we've seen take root over 30 years has been a disaster.
Few are more outspoken critics of modern agriculture than Wayne Pacelli, CEO of the Humane Society of the United States, who says so-called factory farming must end.
It's not acceptable to the consumer to confine an animal in a cage that doesn't allow it to move.
Is that true, though? Because a lot of consumers readily spend their dollars and vote with their dollars.
That's true, but I think that things are changing.
Governor Dave Heineman says, quote, the policies promoted by the Humane Society of the United States are anti-agriculture, and HSUS is out to destroy the #1 industry in our state, end quote.
I think we need to have a choice.
But Pacelli says they're working with farmers like these who say HSUS wants to raise standards.
I'd rather see it done by individuals rather than any regulation or anything.
Farmers Union is also on board.
Partnering with HSUS and helping use their resources to help us create new markets, how can that not be a good thing?
We support Ag. A coalition of farm groups says maybe the elite can afford higher meat prices, but they counter hardworking Nebraskans value affordability at the grocery store. However, Pacelli says farmers value production over animals.
May not be central to the psyche of the farmer.
A spokesman for We Support Ag disagrees, saying farmers are the original caretakers of animals. And they say Pacelli is out of step with Nebraska, who says it's those so-called industrial farmers who miss the mark.
The values that we're espousing are right in the mainstream of Nebraska.
HSUS is definitely a controversial group, and we want to hear your thoughts. We want to know what's your view of HSUS. I support their work on livestock welfare. I oppose them but believe farmers should work with them, or I strongly oppose them altogether. Log on to Nebraska.tv to cast your vote. Just click on NTV's Grow. Starting any new business can be difficult, but especially in agriculture with those high land and input costs, let alone if you speak another language. That's why the Center for Rural Affairs is trying to work with Latinos to get them on the farm. They're working to help integrate the new generation of Latinos into the farm and ranch sector as stakeholders as part of their Beginning Latino Farmer program.
We know that the Latino population in Nebraska is on the increase, but the number of Latino farmers has been reported to be down, and so we're trying to make sure we know there are people out there who want to become farmers, and so we're trying to identify them and connect them with the resources in order to be successful.
Officials at the Center for Rural Affairs say the workshops will be held year-round for anyone trying to start an egg-based business. Immigration has been a huge issue in Congress these days. We asked you last week in our poll question, which of these issues is most important when it comes to immigration reform? Here's a look at the results. President Obama is speaking out on the issue of climate change, but the weather forecast isn't the only thing affected by global warming. Experts say Nebraska is at the epicenter of a global challenge, trying to grow more food with less water, a focus of a recent conference at the University of Nebraska. Here's more.
We can see objectively the climate change is happening right here and right now.
Global warming isn't some faraway thing, but a problem in Nebraska that experts say must be dealt with.
If we continue business as usual, we're heading towards a planet that's somewhere between 7 and 11 degrees warmer.
Confronting that will be key, this panel says, when trying to feed a growing world.
Will absolutely affect crop productivity. And so there is now a very much increasing attention on this so what, and so what can we do about these changes.
And that's a big focus of the Global Water for Food Conference, as the University of Nebraska Symposium sounds the alarm on climate change and the impact on food production.
Make it clear we're not prepared to cope with the droughts and floods today, let alone the impacts that will be coming tomorrow and the increasing frequency of these.
2012 was not only the driest on record in Nebraska, but the hottest. The impact comes in higher food prices, something that can be felt globally.
We see people getting angry, riots on the streets.
Surveys find most Nebraskans believe climate change is already happening, although those in agriculture are most likely to say it's part of a normal cycle. Experts say dealing with these issues will take a global alliance,
where all the role players actually connect, share information, share a similar vision of food security for the planet that looks beyond the national boundaries.
The Kansas winter wheat harvest is finally spreading across the state after a late start. The Kansas Agricultural Statistics Service estimates at least 8% of the wheat in the state has been harvested. In central Kansas, farmers are reporting 50 to 60 bushels an acre. The average is usually around 40 an acre, but in drought-stricken southwest Kansas, farmers are seeing worse conditions, but with some saying they'll be lucky to get 15 to 20 bushels an acre. Also in Kansas, the government's weekly snapshot of Kansas crops indicates warmer weather and steady winds have helped dry out soggy wheat fields. Officials say producers are nearly done planting sorghum and soybeans, and the first cutting of alfalfa is nearly complete. The corn condition was rated 8% poor, but more than 50% good or excellent. Here in Nebraska last week brought some localized storm damage from hail, but also some good rainfall. Most of the wheat in the southern third of the state was turning color, with harvest expected to begin around July 4th. 75% of the state's corn crop was rated good or excellent, and more than 70% of the soybeans were rated good or excellent. Smaller family farm operations are realizing survival depends on selling more than just some crops, so they're cashing in where the corporate giants can't. They're giving the public a chance to share the experience and flavor of small farm life. Small farms are selling products such as jam, olive oil, and lemonade, and they're writing books, hosting dinners, and renting rooms. According to the most recent data, small farms generated $10 billion in 2007 from activities other than crop or livestock sales, an increase of nearly 80% from 2002. If you're a Nebraska farmer who has a Sirius XM radio, there's a new station you may want to tune into. Rural Radio will launch July 15th on Sirius XM Channel 80. Rural Radio's programming will be devoted to providing a wide variety of programming about rural American lifestyle, the Western lifestyle, and the agribusiness interests. The content will span from commodity market reporting, lifestyle programming, original and classic entertainment, and Western sports such as rodeo and bull riding. This week we're at Sturr Museum. I'm next to a couple of goats, but when you're talking about cattle, believe it or not, some say they do better when they're sleeping on a waterbed. Here's more.
The day starts at 5 a.m. at Sunnyview Farm. Time to wake up the herd from a night of sweet slumber on their waterbeds.
A cow needs to eat and sleep, drink water, and just keep doing that day in and day out. A cow likes consistency. And waterbeds are consistent. Every day they're the same.
When the cows are more comfortable, they sleep better. And when they sleep better, they produce milk, which makes life a little bit easier on the farm for Calvin, in more ways than one.
Waterbeds are low maintenance. Basically, they take care of themselves.
The old sand beds made liquid drainage messy. Waterbeds allow for easier care and upkeep on the farmer's side.
Waterbed consists of a rubber. You put 14 gallons of water in, and then there's a little bubble by each waterbed. And that little bubble sheds all the milk and urine off to the side.
Sunnyview Farm added the waterbeds in the winter of 2005. Since then, the cows have been producing more, a lot more, so Calvin plans on keeping them.
I love the waterbed, and I'm sticking with the waterbed.
When people think of 4-H, they often think of livestock shows, but that organization has much more than that, including shooting sports. 550 kids from 35 states competed this past week in the National 4-H Shooting Sports Invitational. Some have done studies that find kids spend hundreds of hours to qualify and practice for nationals.
They're pretty good kids. You know, we take pride in 4-H and building character as well as learning the skills, learning the life skills and teaching responsibility, and so these kids represent that pretty well.
It also takes dedication and sacrifice from parents to travel with their kids and pay for ammunition and supplies, and dozens of volunteers who take time off work to put in countless hours to make the event happen. Nebraska cattlemen want to put more beef on your plate. Not your dinner plate, though, your license plate. The Beef State slogan was once a fixture on cars and trucks, but disappeared decades ago. The cattlemen are bringing them back as a specialty plate, but first they need to get 500 orders to get them in production. Visit the Grow page at Nebraska.tv to learn more about resurrecting a slogan that promotes our livestock heritage. And stay tuned to Grow. We hope to announce the winner of that online vote very soon. Whether in pioneer times or today, the dollars on Main Street, many of them flow from farmers. We'll find out more later in the show. But up next, Marilyn talks about the science of cooking. Stay tuned.